Coming to you from the home of Franklin's finest, this is the APB Podcast. Here now is Franklin Police Public Information Manager, Max Winitz.
It is good to be back. Episode 8 of the APB Podcast. Hi there, everybody. I'm Max Winitz. Great to be with you again this week. As you know, we were off last week. Had the chance to travel to Western North Carolina, do some fly fishing with the family. But as I mentioned, it's good to be back, and it's hard to believe this is episode 8 already of the APB Podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in week after week, whether you are listening to the podcast or you are watching on the City of Franklin's YouTube channel. Big heartfelt thanks. Really enjoying doing this and getting the word out about all the great things going on at the Franklin Police Department. Speaking of great things, this is going to be a very special and a great episode. We're sitting down with Sergeant Leanne Hester. That name may ring a bell to many of you, not just because she's a sergeant here at the Franklin Police Department, but because in 2005 she became the first female soldier since World War II to receive the Armed Forces Silver Star Medal. What a story she has. We're going to talk with her about receiving that Silver Star, what she encountered during her deployment to Iraq. She's also been deployed to Afghanistan, Kuwait, the Virgin Islands, and the U.S. southern border. We're really going to focus the conversation in on her deployments to a couple of those places. But again, fascinating story. We are so blessed to have her as a member of the Franklin Police Department. So you're not going to want to miss that conversation. That's coming up in just a few moments. But first, let's get to the news. It is the official start of summer. As you all know, as of late, you take a walk outside and it just feels like a sauna out there. Well, we want to take this time to remind you that your pets should never be left alone in a parked car. You may remember a couple of weeks ago, we had this same conversation about children being left in parked cars. Today, we want to focus on your pets. Even on a mild day, the temperature inside a vehicle can quickly become deadly for your animal. Cracked windows, they are not enough. In fact, Tennessee law makes it illegal to leave an animal in a vehicle if it risks their health, and our officers will respond if they are in danger. Again, the same applies to your children. Please, please, please keep that in mind as our temperatures continue to soar here in the city of Franklin. When we come back, we're sitting down with Sergeant Leanne Hester, a wonderful conversation about her military and police careers. That's coming up after the break. Stay with us.
Are you ready to make a difference in your community? The Franklin Police Department is seeking dedicated, passionate individuals who want to protect and serve in the South's most charming town. As a member of our internationally accredited team, you'll be part of a dynamic, supportive department that values integrity, professionalism, and community engagement. Enjoy competitive benefits, career advancement opportunities, and the chance to truly impact the safety and well-being of our neighbors. For more information, visit franklintn.gov/joinfpd. That's franklintn.gov/joinfpd.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We are so honored to be joined by Franklin Police Sergeant Leanne Hester here on the podcast today. Thank you very much for sitting down with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
A lot of people know your story, but there are people in this community who don't know that you were the first Silver Star recipient, female, since World War II to receive that honor. And now we have the great privilege of calling you an officer with the Franklin Police Department. So I think I speak for everybody when I say thank you very much for your service, both in the military and here with the police department.
Thanks.
Let's start from the very beginning. Tell me a little bit about growing up. I know you're a Kentucky native, but growing up and how you started thinking that, hey, maybe one day I do want to become a military officer.
Yeah, so I bleed blue. I'm born and bred out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. I when I was younger, I was pretty much a tomboy and outside all the time and doing things with my dad and hunting, fishing, that kind of thing. Loved shooting guns, that kind of thing. I pretty much always wanted to do something of service. I really looked up to seeing people in uniform, especially women, soldiers and police officers alike. I've had a couple family members in the military, no police, but I've had a couple family members. My uncle was a Marine in Vietnam, and my grandfather was in the Army in World War II. Kind of followed in their footsteps a little bit, but it's just something that I always had an interest in, and I've been lucky enough to be able to do both.
I heard you in a previous interview. You stated that when you were a child, there was a parade, and that helped you understand and realize that the military is what you wanted to get into. Is that accurate? That parade incident?
My parents took me. I don't remember what parade it was in Bowling Green at some point in my childhood. And I remember seeing soldiers marching in formation and just being in awe of how disciplined they were and how sharp they looked in their uniforms, and seeing both men and women. And I was like, that's in camouflage. I liked to wear camouflage when I was a kid. And I was like, that's something that I want to do. And so I was recruited in high school. I made the decision to go to college first. I went to WKU up in Bowling Green, and then decided after the first semester that it wasn't for me and at that time in my life. And so I joined the Army.
The conversations you had as a child, as a teenager with your grandfather and your uncle, did that have an impact on you?
So they were the type, they saw a lot of stuff, and they didn't really talk about it too much. Both of them coming back from two very serious conflicts, especially Vietnam, and soldiers weren't appreciated, and they went through a lot of stuff with coming back home. So neither one of them really talked about much of it. But I just, I've seen pictures of them, and we've since had conversations. My grandfather's passed away a few years ago, but, I have his World War II uniform hanging up in my office at home, and some of his relics from his time in service. So I really appreciate both of their sacrifice and service to our nation.
So you enlist prior to 9/11,
Yes.
Then the attacks happen. Did you know right then and there, hey, I'm going to be deployed?
Absolutely. So I enlisted in 2001 in April, and I was on the delayed entry program. So I didn't go to boot camp until October, which was 1 month after 9/11. And when 9/11 happened, it was, obviously a sense of seriousness, like something is going to happen. And I think those of us that went through basic training at that time, the drill sergeants instilled in us we were training and preparing to go to war, whereas previously it'd been a few years, Desert Storm and that kind of thing. And it was way more serious after that happened and when I went.
Do you remember if you were sort of chomping at the bit after the attacks happened just to, get overseas and fight the enemy?
I knew our time was coming, and like I said, I was a brand new soldier and didn't have time with my unit yet. But once I returned back in 2002, that's what we were doing. We were preparing and we were getting ready, and our annual trainings got longer and harder and more focused on war, and we were ready to go.
And so you're sent over to Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about the day you learned that you were, in fact, heading overseas?
I knew the phone call was probably going to come, but I just remember being not shocked, but oh snap, this is actually happening. We're leaving, we're going to go. And excited. It was an exciting feeling as well. But I think we were, like I said, well-trained and well-prepared to go.
So 2005 comes along, you're in Iraq. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there were rules in place at that time in the military. Female members of the military were not supposed to encounter combat. Is that correct?
There was no direct combat roles.
No
for-
direct
for
combat
women.
roles. On a day in 2005, though, you're with your unit and you are attacked, basically, and the result is a Silver Star award. What do you remember about getting that award, and what did it mean to you, especially as a woman, somebody who was not supposed to engage in combat?
So, well, first of all, the actions leading up to that day, we were military police, and my squad was one of the more aggressive squads. We would go out and clear the main MSRs, main supply routes for IEDs, for insurgents, that kind of thing. And we also made sure the convoys carrying supplies in and throughout the Baghdad area were protected, if you will. And we turned around on a convoy that was coming through our area, and they came under attack. And we basically went through, cut around them. There was about 50 plus insurgents that were firing at them using rocket-propelled grenades, machine guns, heavy fire. And without going into so much detail, we basically put ourselves in between them and the insurgents and the convoy and the soldiers that were escorting that equipment, and eliminated all but a handful of those insurgents. And then I didn't even know anything about awards being submitted at that time. But when I was told that I would be receiving the Silver Star, initially I was put in for a Bronze Star with Valor, and then I was told that it got upgraded to a Silver Star, and I didn't realize the impact that was going to make. I was never a person to think about awards. Obviously, I was kind of a baby when I went overseas. I was 23 years old. It's 20 years ago this year. And looking back on it now, it's had, those actions and what happened has had a significant impact on the military and women being in the military and women being able to do combat roles now. So I didn't realize then, to answer your question, what it kind of impact it was going to have. But it was kind of shock and surprise of how big of the effect was going to be.
Going back to the encounter with the insurgents, up until that point, was that the scariest moment of your life?
No.
No.
I actually wasn't scared that day.
Wow.
I know it's crazy for a lot of people to think about. When you see somebody that's shooting at you and you're able to shoot back, it's a good feeling. It was the IEDs that were scary because you never knew where they were coming from or when it was going to happen. I mean, obviously you didn't know when we were going to get attacked either by small arms fire and whatnot, but it was the IEDs that were the scary part. So I lost a couple friends over there from IEDs, and a couple of my friends in my squad got shot on March 20th, 2005, but we weren't scared. Well, I can only speak for myself, but I think we were, like I said, well-trained, and we reacted.
And the adrenaline.
And the adrenaline was up, and, we were able to adapt, overcome, and, win that day, more or less. I know it's crazy. I wasn't really scared that day.
Wow.
I knew my teammates were going to come through, and we had each other's backs, and we relied on each other, and we beat the enemy.
What was the reaction from friends and family when you received the Silver Star?
I think going back a little bit, the next day after the big firefight happened on March 20th, we saw a CNN, like, the scroll on the bottom of the screen, and it said, Kentucky unit did what they did, and however many insurgents, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then next thing I know, like, I'm at the main base headquarters in Baghdad being interviewed live on CNN, and that is when I knew that it was a big deal. My friends and family, they've been very supportive, especially my mom and dad, and they've always supported my decisions, whether it be in law enforcement or the military and that kind of thing. They're very proud.
I listened to an NPR interview you did, I think it was back in 2011, and you said something that stood out, and you said something along the lines of, I don't personally want to be recognized for the Silver Star, but I want women as a whole. I want people to know that it was a woman, not necessarily Leanne Hester, but a woman who accomplished this. That was back in 2011. I think that interview was conducted. You still feel that way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't, well, for one, I don't let my military career or my police career define me. I want to be recognized for the things that I do now and on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter like what gender or what color or what creed a person is when they go do something, great. It speaks for everyone. And in the military, the only color I see is green. And like I said before, the impact that it's made on women in the military is very significant.
And now don't you have a big wax figure of you at a women's military museum?
Yeah, Fort Lee, Virginia. There's a really, really cool display.
You happy with how that turned out?
Yeah, isn't it, like I said, it's not just about me. Like the whole display is the Raven 4-2 element, which was our call sign. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you come back from Iraq and you join the Franklin Police Department. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's face it, you, with your background, with the resume you had, the accomplishments, I feel like you could have joined any police department in the entire country. What was it about Franklin that stood out to you?
So I had moved to Nashville when I was 21, I believe, and I actually worked in Franklin at the Shoe Carnival up in Cool Springs. And I applied here, and I applied with the Sheriff's Department. The wait process and the hiring process was a little bit longer here, so I went and worked at the jail for a couple months, and then, lo and behold, Franklin called and said, hey, we want to hire you, after I went through that process. So I knew Williamson County was a good place to be. We're very privileged to have citizens that support the Franklin Police Department in the county, and I knew it was where I wanted to be. I didn't want to go to Metro or any other surrounding agency, and this is where I came. This is where I got hired, and this is where I'm going to be till I retire.
And then you decided, though, to re-enlist, correct?
Yeah, so I did my initial 6-year contract. I came back from Iraq. I think I had about a year left, and I decided, it was time to give it a break, or I thought it was done at the time.
And then you're shipped off to Afghanistan.
Well, I re-enlisted after a couple years because I missed it. And then I went to Afghanistan and did 2 tours there in 2014-15.
You did not come under any sort of combat fire there, correct?
Indirect fire.
Indirect, okay.
Yeah, we did detainee, kind of like, not prison work, but it's called a detainee housing facility, or a DHA. And we worked with special forces and rangers that would bring their high-value targets right off the X to be interviewed and interrogated, and that's what we did. We safeguarded them.
I guess, what are your biggest takeaways from your time in Iraq and your time in Afghanistan? Sort of, what were some of the similarities, the differences? It's weird for me to ask you this, but which place did you enjoy more? I mean, I hate using that word enjoy because you're in a war zone.
Right.
But I guess, was Iraq more meaningful just because of what occurred?
Yeah, I felt more, we did more. We went outside the wire every day. It was more team oriented, and felt like it was a more significant impact of what we were doing. And we were like in actual war. Not that anybody really likes war, but we were there, and it's at the time I was there, a lot of soldiers got killed. It was about 2,000 to 3,000 a year during a couple of years that soldiers were getting killed. But I think that was more meaningful. I did do some cool stuff in Afghanistan on my second tour there. I was a cultural support team member, working with Rangers and the Afghan female platoon that were special forces. Got to train them. It was really cool, and it was really sad to see what happened in the last couple of years with the closure of Afghanistan and the bases and stuff. But the good thing about that is we were able to get those female soldiers that helped the Americans out. We were able to get them out and over here, so that's good.
And then you are deployed one more time, but this time to the Caribbean to help hurricane victims during Maria in St. Croix.
Yep, St. Croix.
What was that experience like? I know you were assisting the police department down there, but obviously helping a community that was ravaged by a deadly hurricane.
Yeah, St. Croix was destroyed in a lot of ways. It opened my eyes. I was a platoon sergeant at the time. Just being able to help people in need and safeguard them and help the police department there. They were completely overwhelmed. But just being able to help, people that needed common things like toilet paper and generators. There were several, houses were just completely demolished. Like the two towns of Fredericksburg and Frederiksted and Christiansted were in shambles pretty much. But just being able to help them, we were there for 30 days, and it was good.
So what would you say, as far as all your deployments are concerned, or even things you did back here in the States, what would you say was the most rewarding part about your time in the military?
That's a hard question. I think how that goes is being able to train soldiers to replace me and do my job one day, which is coming to an end in the military. I plan on retiring next year after almost 24 years. Just watching the military grow and progress and seeing young soldiers come up and being able to impact them and train them, like I said, to do my job is the most meaningful.
And how about just the overall impact you've had on women, both who are, who were in the service while you were there, and those who are enlisting and they know who you are, and you basically being a role model to so many women. I would suspect that is very rewarding as well.
Yeah, like I said, it's not about me. My name is attached to a lot of that, but it's more of women can do the job, and if you're able to do the job, you should be able to do the job. And I think it's my name attached to my story has opened a lot of doors for women in the military, and opened up doors for combat MOSs now, and it's not just limited to MPs and other MOSs. They're able to do a lot more things now, and that's awesome. As
far as police work is concerned, at least since I've been here, which is about 16 months now, you've gone from a patrol officer to detective, and now to a sergeant on the Charlie shift, which is the evening shift here at the Franklin Police Department. What more do you want to accomplish during your law enforcement career?
I'd like to learn the role as sergeant a little more. I'm pretty comfortable with it now. And ultimately, I think I want to retire as a lieutenant eventually. That's the goal. I got about 11 more years and some change till I'm retirement age here. But yeah, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. How much did you enjoy working in CID as a detective? I know that was kind of a change in pace. Right. But did you like detective work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a good change. I spent 8 years in CID, and it was a good eye opener as far as investigating cases and working directly with, victims and suspects after after the fact at the patrol level. But it was an enjoyable experience. It's made me better as a supervisor and, more knowledgeable, especially as in making decisions on the street, and knowing more avenues than some. But yeah, it was a good experience.
So we have, I believe, nearly 40 military veterans employed as officers here at the Franklin Police Department. I've asked this question to several of them who have appeared on this podcast about the transition from being in the military into law enforcement and whether that was easy for them, because it seems like a similar industry, but each person has said it was not an easy transition. So I'll ask you that question as well.
I think being in the Guard, I've been Tennessee National Guard and Kentucky National Guard. It's made it a little easier because we're citizen soldiers, if you will. We do the 1 week in the month, the 2 weeks a year, and then we go on deployments. So being able to switch back and forth has been an easier transition than somebody that just did, a lot of years active duty or whatnot. In the military, if you're active duty, you have everything right there, basically at your fingertips as far as food, childcare, all the resources that you need. And then, a lot of times when people get out of the military, they kind of don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
But being in the Guard, it's been an easier transition. And to me, it kind of goes hand in hand, but I can see where, coming off active duty would be very different. But I mean, I'm a civilian, most of the time. So it hasn't been difficult for me.
And just finally, what advice do you have for women who are considering a career in either the military or law enforcement?
Yeah, if you're considering it, just do it. I have zero regrets. I know that's maybe easier to say than done, but I have zero regrets. I'm glad with the decisions that I've made, and everything has been a learning experience, whether bad or good. But yeah, it's the opportunities are there, and seize the moment, and if that's what you want to do, go for it.
Well, you certainly seized the moment in more ways than one, and many times throughout your career in both industries, the military and the police department. So again, thank you for everything you've done, for your service, and thank you again for sitting down on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks, Max.
Thank you. And that's going to do it for this edition of the APB podcast. We will see you next week. Thanks as always for watching, and stay safe, everybody.